Hi, Mr. Bickerson.
Hi, Mrs. Bickerson.
How are you?
Good. That brings back so many memories. And in fact, I've heard through the grapevine that you've been hearing stuff about our podcast.
Yes, my Pilates instructor who has a degree in marketing. So she changed careers pretty early on. She started, I don't remember where she worked, but she shifted over to Pilates pretty quickly when she got introduced to it. But she kept bugging me and saying like, where's your podcast link? And I was like, oh yeah, I got to send it to you. And I said, do you listen to podcasts, or are you more of a YouTube person? And she said, I don't even know how to listen to a podcast. I said, okay, I'll send you the YouTube channel. So I send it to her, and then she's like, oh my God, I love it. And then first of all, she sees me with my hair in a ponytail and whatnot. So she's like, your hair is down and you've got glasses on and you look so professional, which is very funny. But she was like, you guys need to be promoting yourselves a lot more. And I was like, I know. So this is the cobbler's children have no shoes kind of situation. So you and I know what we need to do,
Absolutely.
and we have each other as advocates, and then we start to have other people. We have friends that are advocates, so I'm sure she's going to start telling people about it because she's very good at marketing. By the way, so I think it's Pilates with Nikki, Nicky is her Instagram handle if you want to follow her. She's got I don't know 20,000 followers or something like that. But
Wow.
yeah, she's very good at promotion, but it doesn't feel like promotion. It feels very organic.
Yeah.
So
We'll have to have another conversation about Pilates too, because I've never done Pilates.
oh, it's fun. It's hard.
So is the net we have to get out there and promote ourselves?
We do.
All right.
And
That's it.
we know that.
Well,
We know that.
and you said it, like there's only two of us, so we don't really have employees, but
Right.
we're our own, advocates for for our
Yeah.
brand and for
Yeah.
our show and everything like that. And yeah, I mean, it's a little different because we're the hosts. And this is a good segue, I think, into our topic today. We want to talk about how you can how you can empower your employees to be your best advocates. Generally speaking, people work for a company because they like it. No one's being forced to work somewhere, typically, I guess. Let's
Yeah.
hope. Yeah. And so those are people that can make great brand champions, right?
Definitely. And it's even if somebody is hired to do a particular job, if they work at the front desk at your business, and maybe they have an affinity to be doing some other things, they want to dabble in marketing. So you can leverage these people. And in fact, if they're good at it, they also can be some of your best advocates. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about how, what your employees can help with, how to get started, maybe what they can focus on, and maybe some best practices that we've seen.
Yeah, I mean, in net, customers will be introduced to people who are real and relatable, and they may even
Yeah.
recognize them. You know what I mean? Over sort
Yes.
of overly corporate identities, if you will, or hiring an external influencer, right? Who might be popular, but they're not you and they're not your brand. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what would you say one of the ways you can leverage employees? How would you start?
I would start with social media. And because to me, especially, there are people that are kind of social media natives. They're just used to doing things on social media,
Yeah.
and they know what is compelling, kind of engaging content to do. And I do think of an example though in like a hair salon. So let's say somebody is the owner of a salon, and then they have a bunch of stylists that work there. The stylists are also wanting to promote themselves because they're the ones that are, doing the cutting and the coloring and whatever the case may be. But they work for a salon, so why not have them post, if their customers allow it, before and after pictures of something of just demonstrate their work. So it's kind of a win-win for both the company as well as the employee, because they're getting to showcase their work, but then they're also showcasing how they reflect the brand. If you have all the stylists doing that, then you got a lot of content that can be engaging.
Yeah, I think that brings up an important point, though. I think all of these types of things on social media, these activities, the company and the employees need to be in agreement, right, about whose content it is, and that's probably another conversation. But I think it's always good to have a policy, if you will, even if it's just a light policy about even if you promote yourself on your own Instagram account or
Mm-hmm.
whatever,
Mm-hmm.
this content may actually be part of the owner of the hair salon's, domain, if you will. And if they decide they don't want it to be up, they can have it pulled down, different things like that, right? So to your point, you check with your customers, make sure you may even need, just for your own protection, want some sort of model agreement, they're typically called,
Mm-hmm.
where
Right.
I've done photo shoots. So you and I have both done photo
Yeah.
shoots for different companies, and we just have to release it and say it's the property of whatever the company is. It's a pretty minor thing. So,
Yeah, definitely. And most people are very agreeable to it. But that's when we're showing, people's faces or whatever it is. But
right,
and then I will say that there could be ways that you get a little bit more I don't know, organized about it, where you decide you want to highlight, we use Los Gatos Elite as an example often. Maybe you want to highlight the coaches every Monday or something, or maybe you
right,
want to, it's, you have different themes for certain things, like here's Friday Fun Day, or you can come up with themes so that people know what they're working towards, instead of just random, oh, I took a picture.
right. It could be
Or
haircut of the week, right? Or
yeah.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And those sound silly, but they could be kind of fun. People might engage with you just to see what's next, or
Well, it can be very fun. And I did think of an example. It's less about using employees, but the TSA has a Twitter or and Instagram and Facebook account. I think it's Instagram is the one that I look at. So, and it's a person who specifically manages this. So this is different. It's not about an employee being an advocate, although
they're
this
an
happens to be an
employee.
employee. They are an
Yeah.
employee. And it's more like, it's not employee generated content, but it's almost user generated content, because they post a lot of things about crazy things that people try to get through
Security. Oh,
security. And it's funny. So even security is a serious thing, but
right.
they do a good job of putting levity in it. Like, this isn't going to fly, or like, it's funny. So you can do that too. And that's, I think, more of an example of just finding some people that, I
And
think this
just to
person
give,
had another job and then they started doing it and they were good at it.
so what do you happen to know what the account is? Or maybe you can look it up while
I'll look
we're
it up while we're, yeah,
chatting.
sure. Sure.
Because we should give them props.
It's very
Um,
funny.
okay.
Yeah.
I,
Keep
I
talking.
think, well, I was just going to say, I think that sort of leads to the sort of second point, which is really that you want to encourage employees to help you create content, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think of things like you touched on this a minute ago, but it's opportunities to share behind the scenes stories, right? Again, with
People love
permission,
that.
and yeah. For example, I have a child that works for a large famous entertainment company, and they would
Adult
never be
child.
an adult child, but not adult entertainment. Um, and they would never allow for people to do behind the scenes because they're very protective of their
Of their
brand.
brand.
But some people, it's fascinating to watch how something is made, or the process, or really what goes on behind the scenes, and makes stuff really real for a lot of people. I mean, it's sort of another example of a day in the life of, right? So if your company is a little complex, let's say you have people in an office setting, but you also have people who go out and do service calls. Or maybe it's a sales thing and they do demos or whatever. Having
I'm not listening to it all because I'm looking at the TSA.
stop. But the point is that there's a lot of opportunity, and it
Yeah.
can be very authentic, and it makes your customers feel like your brand is relatable, and it's like we said earlier, it's
Yeah.
humans. Like, they're going to recognize. You don't have to go out and hire actors and actresses. You can get real people. I think those were some of my favorite back in the days of print, I remember Palm. They used to publish a little booklet inside of every Palm Pilot that was like Palm swag, like Palm gear, like jackets and
Oh,
sweaters and T-shirts,
feels
and
insider.
employees were
Oh,
modeling it, and their names were on it.
oh, that's fun.
And actually, you know who does that still is Costco. A lot of
Hmm.
the times they do clothing, they'll have, adults or kids
Mm-hmm.
modeling the clothing, and they'll put the names or the family name or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So it's a very real, like relatable, like, wow, these are real people, and this clothing fits
Mm-hmm.
them. They're not size zero.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I've been dying to share this with you. So on Instagram, just TSA is the handle. And then here's one. So breaking news, birds, I can't read it backwards. Birds allowed through security, and a rare green owl was spotted leaving TSA this morning. So, and it's a person dressed up in an owl
Oh
costume.
my
And
goodness.
then so that's like, and then below it, it says owl, right? Some will say this is Photoshop. Hooch really knows, but at least they arrived early and packed smart. So it's like they're giving. I mean, it's totally corny, but I love it. It's very
All
funny.
right. All right.
Okay, simmer down.
Simmer down. Um. Anyway.
Moving on.
Yeah. I mean, the net is let your employees have freedom to share whatever experiences they have in your company. Again, probably because they love working for you or working with your product or whatever. So, what would you say next? What's another idea, another point?
Well, okay, so you said empower, but yeah, it's more like encourage employees, and then there's the empowerment of making your employees almost like thought leaders, because good ideas come from everywhere, as the co-founders of Adobe once said, and it's true. Like as a business owner, you probably know a lot, but you know what, your employees do too, and maybe they're the ones they talk to customers more often than you do,
Right.
maybe, and so they have a different perspective. And so I would say kind of encourage that curiosity and creativity, and then have guardrails in place where you can empower them, because you don't, like you gave an example of your daughter with this brand that you just can't do anything.
Anything.
So you
Yeah.
have to have some sort of guardrails, say, where you say this is okay to do, this is not okay to do, and give them those parameters of what is acceptable and encouraged.
Yeah, I think specific though examples might be let's say you have a roofing company and there's some new material available for the roofing, right? It could be new colors, a new technology of some sort of laminate product or whatever. And if you have an employee who's maybe gone through training to learn about this product so they can sell it, but record them being
Hmm.
a spokesperson, if you will, for this new product, and really, in a sense, they're pitching it, but they're also educating, right? And this is an opportunity for them to talk about something new that just is really, they're knowledgeable, right, in their field, and it shows that the company is on the cutting edge of maybe choosing the right products, things like that.
Mm-hmm. That's true. So this is like it's not just leveraging employees to, free labor, like not free labor, but it's like, oh, your job is to do X, but I'm going to ask you to also post stuff on social media. Like that's almost like a win-win. But then it's also, why don't you have them literally be the spokesperson where you're recording them,
Yeah, I
doing something,
mean,
saying something. Yeah, it's a good
in
idea.
the case of the roofing thing, I could imagine there's sort of a corporate video from the manufacturer, but
Mm.
if you're an installer, right, it's sort of hearing it from your perspective. It's I find that it's really interesting. I have a pool, and
La di da.
there's all kinds of, yeah. Well, they're sort of more trouble than they're worth sometimes, but there's something always happens, goes wrong, whatever, and you can Google on YouTube or search on YouTube for fixing a problem, and it's always like employees of different small
Mm.
companies or larger companies explaining, and this is what they charge people to come out and fix, and here they are doing it essentially for free for
Yeah.
you, and
It's a
you're
good
like,
marketing tactic,
yeah,
though. So then, if there are other prospects that see that, they'll be like, "Oh, they obviously know something. So I have this problem. I think I'm going to ask them I'm going to hire them."
exactly. Again, it just reinforces the fact that they have some expertise and credibility in their space, right? When they can be knowledgeable, and they don't necessarily need. This is the other thing: pool guys are not always photo ready. You know what I mean? They're very
Yeah,
authentic,
that's
very
hilarious.
authentic.
That's very funny.
So I think there's also an opportunity when if you think about leveraging your employees, it's really a way to sort of incentivize them. It
Hmm.
gives them some self promotion, right? It's like, oh, I got picked to be the sort of spokesperson for my company and things like that. And
Hmm.
the more you sort of actively promote it, the more ideas you're going to get, the more maybe participation, things like that. Um,
Yeah, you can almost, I don't want to say gamify it, but you could create leaderboards. So okay. At my former company, that one that you and I both did not work at.
did not.
So, yeah, did not. So we have a couple that we have, three, I guess, if you include consulting. Uh, the last company I was at, though, they wanted to encourage employees to repost things on social media specifically, and we had a platform that let us do this, and it was great. It basically had I could just go and look, and it would have articles of things that we were highlighted in, or it was internal things that maybe we talked about, but it maybe had a page that maybe was on our website that we could drive people to. And then it gave suggested copy. You could edit it yourself. You could schedule it, and
Hmm.
then you'd post it on your own like my own LinkedIn profile or Twitter or X, or like
Did you
you could
just have
do
to
that.
tag it so it was
It
sort
knew
of?
it because it was part of this platform that
Oh,
I can't
I
tell you what
see.
it's called. It kind of knew that, but they were doing contests, and so the people that had the most posts, they got these like points that you could get for something else. And so I wanted this jacket. So I was like, great. And people were like, "You're really active on social media." And I'm like, "I want that coat," like, and it was like 1 month of me just wanting to be, and it literally was like a leaderboard. And so the person that was on the top got, the most points. It was like the top three people, I want to say. So I got that coat. That's what I wanted. But it's like, it got us a lot of people very engaged because of it. It kind of gave us an incentive. So it was very interesting, the platforms that we had in place to implement it, which I
Okay.
don't even know what it is. So that's not very useful to other people because I don't know what it was.
No,
But you
but
could do it on your own, create your
exactly.
own kind of
Well,
leaderboard and how you do it.
I mean, if you tag things, you can
Mm-hmm.
still be able to track them.
Yep.
Again, back to
Track, track,
our
track.
track analytics, analytics, analytics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So okay. Um, and then I think, so what happens when you have, maybe you don't have a lot of employees that feel comfortable doing this,
Yeah.
or they're just like they've never done it, right? But to your point, I think we were entering an age when there's so many digital natives that they may know how to do it, but they may have never done it, kind of thing. So what would you
Mm-hmm.
do in that case? If how would you sort of make sure that your brand is represented correctly or accurately, and how would you make people feel comfortable doing this?
It is tricky because I have helped companies create brand guidelines as an example. And so providing those brand guidelines, and then some are a little bit more formal where they have like a formal onboarding process that includes the brand guidelines. But you probably need to have set up some like workshops or something along those lines to at least help, or at least something that provides tips, because people learn in different ways. So even if you have this very robust brand guideline, some people are better at maybe like a video explaining how to do things, or if that's too much, then you do, a
Or
live kind of workshop thing.
yeah, I mean, you could bring us in too.
That's true. We can help,
We can help.
as
Uh,
always.
but
And then give templates of
yeah,
things, or
right,
a bunch of examples of what. So, and then often the brand guidelines that I've created have like, do this, don't do that.
right.
And actually, I don't usually include social media examples, but I should. This is actually a learning for me, because I will have in brand guidelines, including things like, this is what our logo is. This is what don't do this, do this. These are the fonts. These are our colors. This is our
Well, it's
voice. This is
interesting
our
because I
tone.
remember working one of the big companies that we worked for.
Hmm.
We needed to make sure we all had to go through a training, and then we had like a one pager on our desk, and it would say like, make sure
I work
it,
there too.
yeah, but you
Oh,
may, I think so. It was so for example, this was more of we know there's this was when social media
does
was
it
sort of
rhyme with
new.
Ladobe?
uh, yeah, sort of. But they wanted you to make sure that you put things in your social media that said these are your opinions, like
Oh
at the
yeah, right.
top
Oh,
of your
oh, oh.
account. But
Gotcha.
I think there's a place. What I was sort of thinking is that when you do post for the company on the company's behalf, maybe you make sure that that's incorporated into your description, for example, of whatever your
Right.
post is.
Yeah.
And I think what I was going to say is that it should be pretty easy for um, every company, and maybe this is something we can think about making a template for, but really
For
just
us.
a policy doc that's very
Hmm.
simple, right? Include the name of the company, include this hashtag, don't do this, don't, post weird sites, or, make sure it's on your own personal
Profile.
profile. Yeah, things like that. And you can even include some language around, you're still responsible, and if there's a problem,
All opinions are your own, kind of
and
thing.
be careful, because if you leak secret, there's a difference between behind the scenes
Mm.
and actually how the sausage is made, right? And there's
Yeah.
obviously, if you work for a military company or supplier, you can't be
Yeah, you
careful.
might
You're
not be
not going to be
doing that.
doing this. But every company has their secret sauce and their brand secrets. So just be aware of those too. And maybe that again is something we can incorporate into a template that people could download and then customize for their company. And then that's the kind of thing that you hand out and say, hey, if you want to post, that's great. We'd love it. But here's some things just to keep in mind.
Hmm.
Here's our
Our
brand
policy.
color, but our policy and everything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I just had another like legal thought,
Okay.
and it went out of my head though.
Hmm. I think we
Yeah,
should think
I
about in our
know.
network who we would want to. We should have a legal digital marketing.
I have somebody that I worked with at that last company I was at, I was telling you about, that
Yeah.
was amazing. She was very high up in the organization, and I don't know how I managed to get partnered with her, but I did. And so I could, well, some of the things that I was working on were a little bit complicated. And so the paralegal that I was initially working with, it was a bit above her pay grade. You know what I mean? Like I was
Hmm.
trying to negotiate with her, being like, well, what if we do, and she's like, I don't know. So I got paired with this woman, and she left the company because she wanted to write a book. And then now
Interesting.
she's teaching law at Santa Clara University.
Wow.
She's a very interesting person. Yeah, and I loved working with her. So I'll see if I can rope
Yeah,
her
because
in
I
to
think it
have a
would be
conversation. There's
fascinating
another
to.
person too I worked with there too at that same company that was great as well.
Okay.
Who's at I think Meta now, but
Okay.
yeah, some very good people. But wait, let me see if I can try to muster up what it was I was going to say. So
Le-
policies.
Legal
Oh,
guidelines.
yeah. So I was just going to say that up. up front, there are things that you can do. So, for example, and again, we always use Los Gatos Elite as an example because, I mean, it's like there's a lot of things about that company that are just like the epitome of a small business that we can kind of address.
Yep.
And um, they have, you know, kids that are doing gymnastics and they're competing and they're doing all sorts of other programs, whatever. And they have birthday parties, as you know. And part of it is like, we want to take pictures of these things happening because
Right.
it showcases this is what the gym is like. This is what you can expect. You know, you can see the ratio of coach to kids. You know, it's 12-1 at the most, usually smaller with some of the other specialized things. And then it's part of the terms when you register. You basically acknowledge that, yes, you can take pictures of me and my child while they are actively there. So the legal part that I'm mentioning is like you can think about these things up front. So,
Mm.
you know, if you already know ahead of time that you want to do this, but I don't know how aware people are. She's not nefarious about this. It's like it's there, but and I don't know that anybody's ever disputed it. But just like, yeah, keep that in mind as like another thing.
Yep. So, I mean, so if we're wrapping this up, why do you think um, this is such a popular trend to sort of leverage employees as your brand ambassadors, as your brand champions, right? And why does that work?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is it's sort of efficient, cost efficient. If people are kind of doing double duty, I would say that's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a level of authenticity. So if there's people that are, it's not just employees; it could be other advocates of yours. You
Yeah,
know,
true.
my Pilates teacher that I was alluding to, she's like a brand ambassador for Athleta. And so she always wears athletic clothes. She promotes Athleta. There's all these things that she has to do. So she's sort of an influencer for that brand, you know, and that makes sense. And Athleta has a ton of people. Simone Biles
Right,
is one, you know.
but she's a bit that's a bit different. I mean, that
It
is
is it
truly
is a
an
little different.
ambassador.
It is a
Yeah,
little different. So just mentioning that though, as it's still authentic, like it's incorporated into
sure.
her. It's incorporated. It's not this
Because she's a
overt
gymnast,
thing.
she's not a model. She's, an instructor. She's
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
Um,
Okay.
and then you can get more reach this way, especially if you think of like, okay, I have this many people as my company, but then if I get all these other people that are um, also amplifying my voice, you can exponentially grow your organic following or your organic base,
Mm.
if that makes sense. And then I think probably because of the authenticity, the engagement is really good. And you can even leverage some, as a little aside, but like looking at if there are people that are advocating you, you can kind of amplify them. Like
Hmm.
it's like you don't go out of your way to say, I'm going to pay this Pilates instructor to promote Athleta. It's people that are just they like what you offer and they say something about it on social media. You
Right.
know, you can respond and say thanks for the compliment, and you can post it on your, you know, you can reshare it on your site too.
Right. But I mean, specifically employee led, it's, often because they have
Are you
that.
trying to get me back on track?
I am, because I want to make sure people understand we're not talking about influencers macro. We're sort of, employee influencers, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So just saying that they often have the behind the scenes, right? And that's something that you're never going to get from your Pilates teacher doesn't know how Athleta is made, right? She's probably
True.
never been to a factory or to a design studio. She just knows that it works, right? Whereas employees
Well,
can talk about some of the process, maybe some of the behind the scenes. There's different aspects of it that you wouldn't necessarily get from let's say, an outsider.
true, but I will say, literally, my Pilates instructor, I think it was yesterday, she flew to, I don't know why it was in Texas, because I think Athleta is part of Gap, which is headquartered in San Francisco, flew to Texas to teach to Athleta employees. So,
Great.
and it's like, and I think there's part of it, it's like they're embedding her and vice versa. They're kind of like, This is
Sure.
a she's a customer, you know. It's like they're it's good for employees to be exposed to these are the people that buy our clothing, you know.
No, totally. Totally
Yeah.
get that.
Well, that's a good way to kind of come full circle because she was the one
Right.
that brought stuff up in the first place. But anything else you want to
I can't think
tout?
of anything. No.
You know, well, okay, no, I have something to say. I have something to say. So at the very beginning, I was saying how she said you guys really got to promote yourself a little bit better. No kidding. Well, one of the things that we need people to do is to there's something like 70% of the people that watch our YouTube channel are not subscribed. So that is a plea to subscribe. It will help us and it will help other people see it. And if you're listening, same thing. If you listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever, wherever you get your podcasts,
Or give us
if you
5 stars or
subscribe,
4.5.
but subscribing is very helpful and it will allow us to get the word out to other people like you. And hopefully you are getting some value out of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, from tangents to tactics.
It's mostly marketing.